Once united by language, faith, and history, today Russia and Ukraine stand on opposite sides of one of the most significant conflicts of the 21st century. But how did two nations, born from the same medieval roots, become bitter rivals locked in a devastating war? To truly understand today's crisis, we have to travel back nearly 1,000 years to the very beginning of the Rus civilization. It's a story of shared beginnings, shifting power, and an eventual, heartbreaking divergence. So, let's journey back to the 9th century. The vast lands that now make up modern Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus were all part of a medieval federation known as Kievan Rus, with its vibrant capital right in Kiev. This was the cradle of Eastern Slavic civilization, founded by those adventurous Viking traders, the Varangians. A pivotal moment came in 988 AD, when Prince Vladimir the Great adopted Christianity from the Byzantine Empire. This wasn't just a religious decision, it marked the birth of Eastern Orthodoxy in the region, deeply tying the Slavic people to both Kiev and Constantinople, and forming the fundamental religious and cultural roots of what would become the Russian and Ukrainian identities. Imagine that shared heritage, a common spiritual home, but history is rarely a straight line. By the 13th century, Kievan Rus faced a devastating challenge, the Mongol Empire. Under their relentless invasions, Kiev, once so powerful, fell into ruin. And as Kiev declined, power began to shift northward to smaller principalities that would eventually coalesce into Moscow. During Mongol rule, Moscow's princes learned to consolidate power, becoming astute leaders. They eventually broke free, laying the foundation for the mighty Russian Empire we know. But what about Ukraine? Their lands came under the influence of Lithuania and Poland, developing distinct political and cultural ties. Right here, we see the first major fork in the road, as Russia and Ukraine truly began evolving along separate paths. Fast forward to the 17th century. A part of Ukraine, known as the Cossack Hetmanate, sought protection from Russia against Polish domination. This 1654 alliance, the Treaty of Pereyaslav, was meant to ensure autonomy for the Hetmanate. However, over time, it gradually, almost imperceptibly, led to Russian control. By the late 18th century, under the powerful Catherine the Great, nearly all Ukrainian territories were absorbed into the expanding Russian Empire. The empire then banned the Ukrainian language, restricted cultural expression, and treated Ukraine as a subordinate region. This wasn't just a political move, it was a profound suppression of identity, a pattern that, sadly, would echo through the centuries. Then came a period of seismic change. After the Russian Revolution of 1917, Ukraine briefly seized its chance and declared independence. But this flicker of freedom was short-lived. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, crushed the movement and incorporated Ukraine into the newly formed Soviet Union in 1922. Under Stalin, Ukraine endured one of the darkest tragedies in its history, the Holodomor. This was a man-made famine between 1932 and 1933 that tragically killed millions. Too many Ukrainians. It wasn't just a famine. It was an act of genocide, a deliberate starvation. Despite this immense suffering, Ukraine remained a vital part of the USSR for nearly 7 decades, contributing significantly to Soviet industry, science, and agriculture, showing incredible resilience even in hardship. But freedom, once tasted, is never forgotten. In 1991, the Soviet Union dramatically collapsed, and Ukraine, for the first time in centuries, declared full independence. It was finally free to chart its own destiny. But independence, while exhilarating, brought its own set of challenges: economic hardship, persistent corruption, and deep divisions emerging between Ukraine's often pro-Russian East and its more pro-European West. Yet, for many Ukrainians, the vision was clear: their future lay with Europe, not with Moscow. This was a nation looking forward, eager to embrace a new path. These growing aspirations soon led to a pivotal moment in 2004, the Orange Revolution. Mass protests erupted after a rigged presidential election, with the people rejecting Russian-backed leadership and demanding true democracy. This powerful display of civic will sent shockwaves. Moscow saw this as a Western intrusion into its historical sphere of influence. From that point on, Russia grew increasingly determined to maintain control over its former Soviet neighbors, especially Ukraine. The ideological lines were being drawn sharper than ever before. The tensions tragically escalated in 2014, Ukraine's then pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, was ousted after refusing to sign a crucial deal with the European Union. Soon after, Russian forces swiftly moved in and seized Crimea, claiming they needed to protect Russian-speaking citizens. This move was globally condemned as an illegal annexation. Almost immediately, fighting erupted in eastern Ukraine, where Russian-backed separatists declared independence in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The rift had now turned into an undeniable, open conflict. The stakes had never been higher. Then, on February 24, 2022, the world watched in horror as Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Major cities like Kiev, Kharkiv, and Mariupol came under attack, and millions of civilians were forced to flee their homes, abandoning everything they knew. But what happened next shocked the world: Ukraine's resistance. Under the inspiring leadership of President Volodymyr Zelensky, the country rallied with unprecedented unity, receiving crucial military and humanitarian aid from NATO and the European Union. This war reshaped global politics, triggered massive sanctions against Russia, and, for many, rekindled those chilling Cold War-era tensions. As of today, the war tragically continues. Ukraine fights not just for territory, but for its very identity, its democracy, and its survival as a nation. Russia, led by Vladimir Putin, insists it is protecting its historical and cultural influence. But the human cost is immense, truly heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians have died, and entire cities lie in ruins. Internationally, this conflict has accelerated energy crises, fueled global inflation, and ignited vital debates about the balance of power in our multipolar world. It's a stark reminder of how interconnected we all are. The rift between Russia and Ukraine is not just political. It is historical, cultural, and profoundly personal. Two nations that once shared the same roots in Kievan Rus now find themselves on opposite sides of a devastating war and clashing ideologies. Yet, amid all this destruction and division, one truth remains: both peoples share centuries of intertwined history and human connection. What began as one civilization has tragically become a struggle between freedom and control, past and future. This is the enduring story of Ukraine and Russia, a shared beginning and a painful struggle for independence that continues to shape our world today. Thank you so much for watching and for taking the time to understand this complex history. If you found this explanation helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might learn from it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history and current events. Your support helps us continue telling these important stories.